Hi, this is Dr. Habib. I just want to talk today about insulin resistance. What is it? What does it do? And how to fix it? Well, what it is quite complicated, but I'll keep it simple. In the most simplistic terms, it's resistance against insulin, disruption of the insulin receptor. Many things can do that, but namely inflammation can be one of the biggest drivers for it. So insulin resistance makes your insulin levels go high. It makes more free fatty acids. Your liver starts to make glucose. And so as a result, it's synonymous with many, many diseases. It's a common driving force for heart disease, diabetes, dementia, and fatty liver, and much more probably. Now, how do we fix it? Well, insulin resistance, as I alluded to, has a lot of overlap with the things that create inflammation. So the gut microbes send messages to the adiposity. Adipose tissue sends immune signals, and that then drives the disruption of the insulin receptor. So in short, if you had a healthy gut, that would help. But in particular, short-chain fatty acids that you find in certain bacteria that produce it, certain foods like certain fatty acids, or the way we describe it is like linoleic acid or GLA. These are high in short-chain fatty acids, and certain microbes in the gut produce short-chain fatty acids, and then they send the signal to improve the insulin receptor signal, so resulting in insulin sensitivity. So now, in more detail, what is insulin resistance? Insulin resistance, as I said, is the biggest driving force behind heart disease, diabetes, fatty liver disease, even other immunological factors, because there's a lot of overlap with inflammation. So the overlap is this. Immune cells called cytokines, interleukin-6, tumor necrosis factor, CCL ligand 2, these are the markers that go to disrupt the insulin receptor. But the question is, why is that happening? It's happening because something in the gut is sending signals to the adiposity. That's where most of these signals come from. And so, in short, it's about your diet, right? But what is it about the diet? So a diet that's rich in fiber is really fuel for bacteria. We call those prebiotics, right? So prebiotics and food that the bacteria can feed off helps improve the environment for the microbes to send the positive signal. And if that's the case, it would be nice to actually find a wonderful probiotic and solve the problem, but it's not that simple, because in order to have that environment for good microbial flora, you have to have the right digestive acids from your stomach, you have to have acid in your stomach, you have to have good bacterial flora in your gut, you have to have a good mucus lining, you have to have a strong amino acid for the gut. Then you now start to give the right environment for the bacteria. Then when we talk about prebiotics, what it is that basically, insoluble fiber like inulin is food for the bacteria. That's why we call it prebiotic, fuel for the bacteria. Then polyphenols like blueberries convert the microbial flora to the ones that are more likely to make the short-chain fatty acids. So away from things like hydrogen sulfide and methane that you get in gas to things which produce more like short-chain fatty acids, more healthy. And short-chain fatty acids are the things that then send the signals to the adiposity, and immune cells like cytokines and chemokines are then released. And so the final state, which we describe as insulin resistance, is actually quite synonymous with inflammation, because, as I said, those inflammatory signals, those cytokines, chemokines, they are one and the same. But the insulin resistance, to take it more to a clinical situation, is that if you have resistance to the insulin, then your body has to pump out more insulin. Insulin is a big driver for inflammation. Not only that, if you keep on pumping out more insulin than you could get away with, you'll exhaust the pancreas. And so when the reserves of insulin come down to the last 40%, that's when the blood sugar starts to go up. Up until then, if you have enough insulin reserves at 70% and 60%, 50%, That's enough to keep the sugar below 124 fasting. But once the reserves of insulin go down to below 40%, that's when the sugar starts to come up. So by the time your doctors diagnose diabetes, it's way downstream, should we say. Because insulin resistance is a state that was probably there before, and even if it's not there, it drives or accelerates diabetes, accelerates heart disease. So it's not necessarily the cause of everything, it's really a state, and a state that you don't want, an undesirable state. An it's a state that the immune system is not happy, okay? And it's because you're unhealthy. Your gut is unhealthy, your diet is unhealthy. So it's synonymous with that. But going back to insulin resistance, it happens at multiple organ systems. You may just imagine it's to do with the pancreas, but really, insulin resistance happens at multiple organ systems. Why it's so detrimental? It's at the liver level, it's at the pancreas level, it's at the muscle level, it's at the adipose tissue level, it's at the gut level. So the natural way to deal with insulin resistance is make your liver more healthy, make your muscles more active, you have a change in diet so your gut's more healthy, and then be efficient with your demands of your pancreas by eating sensibly, macro diet versus a refined carb diet. So if you have insulin at all those levels, insulin receptors all those levels, then it makes sense naturally to build the sensitivity by making those organs more healthy. And we know that there is value to insulin sensitivity because there's even a pharmaceutical product called GLP receptor agonists, and those are designed to minimize insulin resistance. And ever since those came out, the incidence of heart attacks in diabetics went down. Up until that point, no matter which diabetic was being treated and the sugars are being controlled, heart attack was twice as more common in diabetics than in non-diabetics. Since GLP receptor agonists came on the market, since we're now addressing insulin resistance, now heart attack has come down in the diabetics in addition to controlling the sugar. So we know that insulin sensitivity is going to be at a critical point in the disease process of all the common diseases, and insulin sensitivity is going to be achieved by making the organs healthy. But in particular, you would understand that certain nutrients, certain B vitamins, certain minerals are your building block for that insulin to work right. But that receptor and the disruption is more of an immunological thing, and that cannot be fixed without really becoming healthy. And healthy means having a good diet, and a good gut health means a good bacterial flora. A bacterial flora that has ratios like Bacteroides over Firmicutes, a ratio where you don't have leaky gut. You have to have an environment, a good ecosystem. And the reason why I focus on insulin resistance is because there has to be a short-term strategy, because I can't wait for the inflammation to come down. I can't wait to treat the heart disease and the risk of a heart attack. But in the long run, changing the gut health is ultimate, but it takes more time. It takes more investment. You have to start to eat to live, not live to eat. And so that takes a certain maturation level. So in summary, even though we've been told that cholesterol is the leading cause for heart disease, that's wrong. That blood pressure is the leading risk factor for heart disease, it's wrong. We've been told that being diabetic is one of the leading drivers of heart disease. That's wrong, because what's common to all those things is insulin resistance. It's not an easy way to measure, but it needs to be measured. That we do have tools to do that. If you can drive down insulin resistance, irrespective of what the sugar, blood pressure, and cholesterol is, you will reduce the disease progression for heart disease. And just before I finish, controlling the blood sugar is very important. That's called glycation. And controlling it will stop the retinopathy stop you from going blind. Will stop the nephropathy, having loss of kidney function, ending up on dialysis. Neuropathy, losing sensation in the hands or having worse than that, burning, tingling. What I'm trying to say is that as important as glycation is, and all the things I just mentioned, it's even more important to save somebody's life from having a catastrophic heart attack. That's the order I want to understand. Not that it's not important to control the sugar, not that it's not important to control the blood pressure, but I guarantee you this, if you know how to control insulin resistance, you won't have blood pressure. You won't have risky cholesterol particles. You won't have inflammation. You won't have blood pressure, diabetes, because they can't exist if you know how to turn off insulin resistance.